Good afternoon. I'm Jacob Brooks for Skedline News. The date is March 11th, 2020, and these are today's top stories. We have breaking news that the World Health Organization has declared the COVID-19 outbreak a pandemic. Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus has said that he expects the number of cases, fatalities, and countries impacted will continue to rise. Justin Trudeau announced today a $1 billion fund to help provinces combat the virus. The measures are the first to be unveiled by the Liberal government in Canada, where 91 people have been diagnosed so far, and one person has died. The money will help buy surgical masks and face shields and will also fund vaccine research. The government will also make it easier for sick workers to claim employment insurance. Trudeau said that he is prepared to commit more money should the situation call for it. Sudbury's first case of COVID-19 has been identified after a man attending a mining conference in Toronto last week. An ongoing public health investigation has revealed that a Sudbury resident attending the Prospectors and Developers Association of Canada conference in Toronto on March 2nd was experiencing symptoms associated with the virus. He went to a hospital in Sudbury on March 7th and was discharged and placed into self-isolation. Both Premier Doug Ford and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau attended the convention as well, but neither are currently experiencing symptoms. In other COVID-19 news, a Hamilton Health Sciences radiation oncologist has tested positive for the virus. The doctor returned to work after a personal trip to Hawaii. While infected, she interacted with patients and other hospital staff. The hospital has put out a statement assuring the public that all precautions are being followed and the situation is being treated with a high degree of caution. Anyone who's in contact with the doctor, including patients and staff, are being contacted. More locally, Toronto City Councillor Josh Matlow is in self-isolation after coming into contact with a man who has the virus. Matlow has shown no symptoms but will remain in isolation in his home until March 20th as a precaution. He has announced that all of his events for the time being will be cancelled or rescheduled. Now for a look at sports this week with Jack Anderson.
Thanks, Jacob. Here's the latest in sports. 4 major North American sports leagues have restricted locker room access to media amidst the threat of the coronavirus. The NHL, NBA, MLS, and MLB have all agreed to the restrictions, with the NFL yet to make any decisions. Players are only being allowed to speak to media at press conferences. Some major leagues are considering playing the rest of their seasons without fans in attendance. Many large sporting events are in doubt in the wake of the virus. WrestleMania is in danger of being canceled due to the coronavirus. The 36th annual event is set to take place on April 5th in Tampa. Florida has already canceled the Ultra Music Festival and other larger events. WWE stars are anxious to see how the next month unfolds. The IIHF has canceled the Women's World Hockey Championships due to the outbreak. The 10-country Halifax tournament will be rescheduled for 2021. The IIHF Council will meet again to discuss what to do with events that are scheduled in April. And now crossing over to the court, the Raptors are back home Saturday to take on the Detroit Pistons. It will be their first game in 5 days after closing their road trip with a win against the Utah Jazz. Shooting guard Norman Powell is still out with an ankle injury suffered against the Jazz. The Raps currently sit second in the Eastern Conference with a record of 46-18. And over to the ice now. 4 Canadian teams were in action on Tuesday. The Toronto Maple Leafs pulled off a big 2-1 win against the Tampa Bay Lightning last night. Austin Matthews and William Nylander were the goal scorers for the Buds, and Mitch Marner and John Tavares added 2 assists each. The Leafs now hold a 3-point lead over the Florida Panthers for the 3rd spot in the Atlantic Division. The Montreal Canadiens took a loss to the Nashville Predators last night. The Habs honored the legendary Henri Richard before the game, who passed away on Friday. Richard, aka the Pocket Rocket, still holds the record for career Stanley Cup wins with 11. Philip Forsberg led the way in the game with 2 goals and an assist for the Predators. Rookie Lucas Vedamo scored his first career NHL goal for the Habs in the loss. The Vancouver Canucks won a close game against the New York Islanders in a shootout. Breakout star JT Miller had the lone shootout goal and added an assist in the game. Brock Besser made his return from a rib injury for the Canucks. The Ottawa Senators lost by a score of 5-2 to the Anaheim Ducks. Nicolas Deslauriers scored a natural hat-trick in the first period of the game for Anaheim. Brady Tkachuk and Colin White added a goal and an assist for the Sens in the loss. And now for the latest on your Humber Hawks. The Humber curling team is in Manitoba for the 2020 CCAA National Championships. The tournament runs from March 11th to the 15th. The women's squad will be looking for the program's first national title, while the men's squad will be looking for their first tournament win since 2016. And swinging over to the diamond, the Toronto Blue Jays won a spring training game over the New York Yankees yesterday. The final score of the game was 4-2 after a strong performance from pitcher Tanner Roark. The Jays will take on the Baltimore Orioles on Wednesday, and the Major League Baseball regular season is set to begin on March 26th. That's all for sports now. Back to you, Jacob.
Thank you, Jack. Staying on COVID-19 news, all of Italy is on lockdown after infection rates soared. 168 people died in Italy on Monday, the highest recorded deaths attributed to the virus in a 24-hour period. The last flights in and out of the country were last night, and the cases in the country have now topped 10,000. The town of New Rochelle in New York is the site of a 1-mile containment site after a spike in COVID-19 cases. The National Guard was called to help disinfect public places and to deliver food to those under quarantine. All indoor public gatherings have also been banned in an effort to prevent the spread of the disease. While no deaths have been reported yet in New York State, Governor Chris Cuomo says that the measures are precautionary. Mayor of New Rochelle Noam Branson stressed that the National Guard presence is to help the citizens and that the city is not under martial law. There are no travel bans currently in place for New Rochelle. Joe Biden has pulled ahead of Bernie Sanders once again after a strong showing on Tuesday. Biden's campaign surged last night as Bernie Sanders scored one victory in Tuesday's Democratic U.S. presidential nominating contests. The sweeping wins put Biden on a path to face Republican Donald Trump in the November 3rd election, and he quickly began to look ahead, calling for party unity. The loss in the state Sanders had won during his 2016 White House campaign will heighten pressure on the senator, a self-styled Democrat socialist, to exit the race and to help Democrats prepare for a bruising campaign against Trump. Sanders, who returned home to Vermont on Tuesday night, did not make a public statement after his losses, a departure from his usual practice on primary nights. Moving on to other international news, the Afghan government on Wednesday said it would free 1,500 Taliban prisoners while delaying the release of another 3,500 that the militants say must be set free for talks to begin under a peace deal reached with the United States. The Taliban promised to open talks with the Afghan government as part of the accord reached with the United States last month to end 18 years of U.S. involvement in the war in Afghanistan. The militants say the agreement requires the government to release 5,000 prisoners before the talks begin. The government says the talks must begin and violence must subside before it will free them all. Suhail Shaheen, a spokesman for the Taliban based in Doha, told the Reuters the group had never agreed that there would be conditions attached to the release of the 5,000 prisoners. This news comes just 1 week after the United States launched an airstrike on Taliban forces. Despite peace talks, fighting has continued throughout the country. Russian lawmakers have amended the constitution to allow for President Vladimir Putin to be re-elected in 2024. An amendment to alter presidential term limits sailed through both levels of the Russian parliament today. This amendment would, in effect, set the number of presidential terms Putin has served to 0, allowing him to run 2 more times. Any of his successors will have to abide by a 2-term limit. If Putin is re-elected, he will mark over 3 decades at the top of the Russian political ladder. Now let's take a look at weather with Emma Mowick.
Thanks, Jacob. Well, it's another beautiful day here at Humber Lakeshore, and it looks like our milder weather streak is going to be continuing throughout the week. With spring on everyone's minds, let's see what Humber students like to do when the weather gets warmer. So what's your favorite thing to do in the warmer weather?
Spending time up north in the outdoors, pretty much, yeah.
So what's your favorite thing to do in the nicer weather?
I like going to a lot of sporting events if the weather's nice, like maybe like Toronto FC or Blue Jays or something, that kind of thing.
Well, let's look at what the weather's going to be like for the rest of the week. We've been seeing a lot of more mild spring-like temperatures lately, and today is no different, but it is a little bit cooler than the days before. So today we're going to be having a high of 3, which is quite nice, some sun and cloud throughout the day, but mostly cloudy, and we're going to have a nighttime low of -3 degrees. Moving into tomorrow, our temperatures are going to rise a bit with a high of 8, and we'll have some cloud and a little bit of sun throughout the day. We might see some rain overnight with a nighttime low of 3. Moving into Friday, we're going to definitely be seeing a bit more rain, so Friday is probably going to be the wettest day of our week. We're going to be having a pretty pleasant high of 6 degrees and a low of -6, so definitely a little bit cooler overnight, but still spring-like temperatures overall. Moving into our weekend, it's going to be a little bit cooler, but it's still going to be above 0 in our highs, which is definitely going to be nice to enjoy. On Saturday, we're going to have a daytime high of 4, and our low will drop to a cooler -9, so definitely don't put away your winter coats just yet. Moving into Sunday, we're going to be having a cooler high of 1, so a little bit more of wintry temperatures on Sunday, but still above 0 during the day, with our low dropping to -5 degrees and mostly sun. Now, moving on to our international story. Swedish activist Greta Thunberg is calling on climate activists across the world to move their rallies online as coronavirus concerns grow. Thunberg attracts large crowds to protest against climate change and is the founder of the Fridays for Future youth movement. Many countries are placing bans on large public gatherings to curb the spread of the COVID-19 virus. With the current virus fears, Thunberg encouraged fellow activists to listen to local authorities and find ways to advocate which do not include large public gatherings. She encouraged her supporters to post photos of them striking with the hashtags ClimateStrikeOnline and Fridays for Future. The Fridays for Future movement calls on politicians to listen to climate scientists and take steps against fighting climate change. This is Emma with your weather report for the day. Now, back to the news with Jacob Brooks.
Thank you for that, Emma. An Ontario judge has ordered Ryerson University to transfer withheld funds back to the student union. The Ryerson Student Union was caught up in a scandal broken by the school newspaper last year over misappropriated funds. The school refused to continue funding the student union until a forensic audit could be conducted. The union said that the financial impact to the school would be minimal if funding continued, but that they would not be able to continue providing services to the student body if the funding was not released, and that they would be forced to shut down. Ontario teachers' unions are returning to the bargaining table today. This announcement comes after weeks of rotating strikes to protest education cuts made by the Ford government. Union representatives are warning that if they cannot come to an agreement with the government, job action will continue after the March break. For more coverage on this, visit skedline.com to read Ireland Lavery and Sarah Taher's story. The iconic Tim Hortons promotion Roll Up the Rim is confusing customers today. After an initial announcement that the coffee giant would be revamping the promotion this year to keep it relevant in the digital age, it was then cancelled just a week before the new version was set to launch, citing hygiene concerns related to the COVID-19 virus. Advertisements for the competition continued running on social media, prompting confusion about whether it was actually cancelled after all. Canadians woke up this morning to get their morning coffee, only to be told that the competition would be continuing exclusively through the Tim Hortons app. Other locations, however, such as the one in Buffalo, are still using physical cups, but are telling customers that the physical rewards will not be accepted. Now we're going to check in with Maddie Sear for entertainment news.
The 49th Annual Juno Awards are going ahead this Sunday, March 15th. Among the nominees are Canadian artists Justin Bieber, The Weeknd, and Avril Lavigne for the Juno Fan Choice Awards. The awards are going ahead despite COVID-19 concerns, as no cases of the virus have been reported in Saskatchewan where the ceremony is being held. Singer-songwriter Story is making headlines around the event, saying that the clout will help her leave behind a life of sex work. Among the noms are also 11 Humber alumni and faculty from the Bachelor of Music, Introduction to Commercial Jazz, and Comedy Writing Performance programs. Our Humber peeps have been nominated for, and I might slip up here, Best Solo Jazz Album of the Year, Best Group Jazz Album of the Year, Vocal Jazz Album of the Year, Instrumental Album of the Year, Group of the Year, Pop Album of the Year, Country Album of the Year, R&B/Soul Recording of the Year, Contemporary Roots Album of the Year, Traditional Roots Album of the Year, Breakthrough Group of the Year, Adult Contemporary Album of the Year, World Music Album of the Year, and Best Comedy Album of the Year. I mean, wow! Congratulations, everyone, from everyone here on our Skedline team. Billie Eilish made waves. Billie Eilish made waves in the social media sphere last night, taking off her shirt and taking on the world. She said, quote, "I feel you watching, always. We make assumptions about people. Based on their size, we decide who they are." Some moving words, especially when spoken in front of a sold-out Miami audience of 21,000. Eilish's Where Do We Go tour will continue until early fall of 2020 with stops in North America, Latin America, and Europe. For more coverage and a full list of tour dates, check out Sarah Taher's coverage on skedline.com. The Mulan premiere went forward as well last night in spite of concerns over COVID-19. The live-action remake of the Disney animated classic debuted in Los Angeles to a packed Dolby theater. On top of regular security checks, Dolby Theater staff also put out hand sanitizing stations, and the regular jubilance of the red carpet was somewhat kneecapped, with stars asking for hugs and handshakes, and choosing to pick up their own food instead of having it handed to them. So that's how the other half's life has changed. I usually pick up my own food, whether there's a pandemic or not, but anyway, Mulan is set to release to the public on March 26th. Many plans, however, were not so lucky to go ahead in spite of the virus. This week, Pearl Jam announced that they would be postponing their North American tour. Coachella has been postponed until October. Miley Cyrus has canceled her Bushfire fundraising event, and now rumors are circulating that one of the last Electronic Entertainment Expo conferences may also be canceled. So make sure to keep washing your hands, and there's actually a list going around on Twitter of songs that are long enough to wash your hands to. My personal favorite, I'm a country gal at heart, the chorus from Fleetwood Mac's Landslide. Find that full list on our website, along with more information on those cancellations. Led Zeppelin has finally won their Stairway to Heaven copyright case. The band were able to convince a U.S. appeals court that it did not steal the opening guitar riff from Taurus, written by the band Spirit 4 years earlier than Stairway's release. The 9-2 verdict reinstates a 2016 ruling that Led Zeppelin did not engage in copyright infringement. And finally, for entertainment, Bachelor Pete Weber's search for love has come to an end. This season of The Bachelor closed out with Pete and Madison Pruitt living happily ever after. Until Pete's mother, Barb, arrived on the scene. Barb prefers runner-up Hannah Ann and was incredibly disappointed with her son's pick. That's all we have for entertainment today. I'm Maddie Sear for skedline.com. Now, let's throw it back to Jacob Brooks. Jacob?
Thanks a lot, Maddie. Well, former Hollywood mogul Harvey Weinstein is going to prison for 23 years. Today's sentencing comes after his rape and sexual assault convictions last month. Judge James Burke ordered Weinstein to be held in custody until his sentencing hearing this morning, when he was sentenced to 20 years for criminal sexual assault and 3 years for third-degree rape. Weinstein's defense attorney Donna Rotuno expressed her anger at that sentence, saying that Burke had caved to pressure from the Me Too movement and called the sentence obscene. Well, that's all we have for today. I've been Jacob Brooks. Please visit skedline.com for continuing coverage of today's top stories, and we'll see you next week.